My name is Don Mason. I come to California as a young boy, 8 years old, in 1948. So that makes me an old man. I've been in Farmersville since 1964 after I got out of the Air Force. I spent 4 years in the Air Force in Minot, North Dakota, in the 5th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. So it's a long time ago. Wished I was still there. I came to Farmersville and I was looking for a job, of course. And I ended up at a little garage here in Farmersville called Farmersville Automotive. There's a gentleman named Truman Qualls, and Daryl Featherston had a garage there, and I started working for them in the fall of 1964. And that led my own. I lived here a long time before that, but this is everything that happened to me in Farmersville has happened since that time. 7 years later, I opened up my own business in Farmersville in 1969. And then in 75, I bought 1977, I bought property out north of Farmersville. And in 1982, I built a tire and auto shop there, which is still there today. And I'm still part-time in it. I'm having fun now. Well, actually living in Farmersville, like I said, I didn't live here until 1964. But I lived 2 or 3 different places right around Farmersville, a mile out of town, out on the old Marshall Dairy. Lived there for 11 years. But always in Farmersville since I came back from the North Country. We lived up there for 4.5 years in Richmond, California. Then we moved back in 1952. And both times I went to Outside Creek School, which people know the name, old school that's probably would be 150 years old today. And we named a school after that, our continuation school in Farmersville. A friend of mine and Gary Meek, the chief, helped me name that school Deep Creek Academy. So that's where that came from. An old school out on Highway 198 and 168. Just north of Cameron Creek. I went there in 1948. Like I said, we moved north to Richmond. We came back in 52, and I went there again. And then later on, we moved south of Farmersville and just commuted with Farmersville all this time. A memory back, if you want to know something about then, when I first came to Farmersville, there was a little shop right next to the railroad tracks where the feed store is now. There's a little store there that's still there. It was a feed store and a repair shop. And my grandpa had a Model A pickup. And we came to Farmersville and took it to the garage there and had him to work on it. So you can imagine what that was like back then. And from Front Street, which was only about 10 houses, from Front Street all the way to Ash Street, there was nothing except cornfield. It was always corn from there all the way east to the Brundage Lane. And when we moved from Deep Creek, we moved back. I moved to Lynn Cove, a little town of about, not a town, a little suburb of probably 300, 350 people. And I went to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade there. And then had a very good school, a lot of fun out there and a lot of times hiking around the ditches and the mountains and just playful. A lot of friends from Farmersville here I knew would come out and spend the nights with us. And I left, when I got into high school, then I would play in football. No driver's license, just a kid about 14 years old. 10 miles into town, into Exeter. And I would take the bus in the morning to school, but I would have to hitchhike home at night. But that was my days in school. And then when we moved to Exeter, to south of Farmersville, I commuted back and forth from high school to there. And we moved into town about just outside the city limits here to the west of Farmersville on 156. And we lived there for a couple of years. In Farmersville, after I got out of the service I came back straight to Farmersville. And I lived in Exeter for 2 weeks and I couldn't wait to get out of town. But anyway, moved to Farmersville, my wife and I was working for the Farmersville Automotive. And first thing they did was, the guy that was working with me, you probably know his name well around here, His name Ron Parrish. All those guys were in the Farmersville Fire Department and the Lions Club. That's all we had in Farmersville. So of course I joined the fire department and I joined the Farmersville Lions Club. And we done that for years. I was in the fire department for years and years. And finally I got too old to climb the ladder, so they kicked me out. But anyway, I left for about 8 months and drove a truck across country and then come back. I still lived in Farmersville, but came back to town and living in town then. And then I opened my other shop up, the early days, and got into with Gary Meeks and the guys like that around. Got into the Chamber of Commerce and that kind of stuff. And I'm in the Chamber of Commerce till it died away about 10 years ago. But we had a Chamber of Commerce, and had a lot of fun in that. A lot of times. Then we started the Kiwanis Club in 1989, and that's still going. I'm still a member. Been a president a few times, but had a lot of fun in that. In 1993, I run for school board. I was on the school board for 21 and a half years. And I got on it, we built a high school. We built Gary Meek Stadium. We built that while I was on the school board. And built the school, Freedom School. I was on the board when we built that. And that was great times. I really miss the days on the school board. That was some of my great high life. Met a lot of kids and had a lot of fun, and the school board was, and the school was still is a great school for Farmersville. The greatest thing that ever happened in Farmersville, so that was a good thing. There's a guy named Ollie Ferris. He was a sheriff, the undersheriff of Tulare County, and he was on the school board at that time. And he came to me and said that asked if I wanted to run for school board. He said if I want to run, that he wanted to get off, and he asked me if I would run in his seat. And so, I talked it over with my wife. Oh yeah, I was ready for it. I answered him that day, but I would still had to talk to my wife to say I was going to. Not ask her if I could, if I was going to. But anyway, Alvander Slice and myself, another mechanic here in Farmersville, we joined the school board. And that's how I got into that through Ollie Ferris. And we had lots of guys on the board that had a good school board, good school, and a lot of fun. A lot of 21 years it's passed away in the school. Then in the first year of high school, the kids were freshmen. We had the freshmen, and then the next year we had the sophomores at the junior high school. So we had the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and the 10th graders at our high school. You talk about a crowded school. And so we had that for a few years. And I started the first year, we had some kids, they wanted to play football. And it was the real fun about that, the fun days in sports. We got in there, well, none of the kids had ever seen a uniform outside their jersey on the outside. They just seen kids and everybody else in uniforms. So we had a couple of people come over from Exeter and show the kids how to dress and put on their pads and their uniforms. That was fun. Watching them little freshmen, sophomores doing this, And then I went out and I started a chain gang. And we had that, and I had a couple of friends of mine, and we volunteered. We went out there and took rakes and hoes and dug all the goat heads we could up out of the junior high football field, and we marked it off and started our first game there. The first year we played, I think, 6 games, and we played 3 championship games, and we won the championship our sophomore year. That was fun. That was funny of kids like that. And it was so much fun watching them. And you're up close on the sideline too, So it's, and the first 2 years was really something to watch. Well, that's kind of not a bad time in life. We thought we was having fun, socializing and going forth on the weekends and stuff like that. Just like anywhere, you go out to dances, and you go to some of it when you got older. You went to the bars, and they had music and dances. We had three bars in town, and one of them was named the Frontier Club, which was on Farmersville Boulevard and Visalia Road, East Visalia Road. And next door to that was a Topper Club. Then we had two Mexican bars on Farmersville Boulevard, Siete Copas and Angelina's. And then north of town, we had one called the Dewdrop Inn. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. In '69, I decided I was doing mechanic work, and then I was working in the automotive machine shop at Lonnie's Auto Parts. And I decided the bar was up for sale, so I decided to go into the bar business. And I was, trying to get into Farmersville, into the clubs and stuff like that. And so then I sold that out and left. But in the bars on there, Saturday night was a big thing in Farmersville for cowboys. And at that time, we all owned horses, and I owned a couple of horses myself. And we had Saturday night rides. And we'd get out and we'd ride sometimes to Exeter, sometimes south of town, 3 or 4 miles. And then out north of town, we'd right over the freeway and go out and ride south of 168. Just ride our horses around. And then we'd come back at 9 or 10 o'clock that night and tie our horses up at the back of the Frontier Club and go in and got some drinks. And then time to go home on Saturday. In the mechanic days, I've always been into drag racing and had a couple of race cars, which I still have one today that I hope to drive one more time before I can't drive anymore. But a lot of guys in drag racing around this area right here. We had several clubs that lasted quite a few years. We had one of them here, the Farmersville Sportsman's Club, we had that for years in Farmersville. I still have some stickers that goes on the cars and stuff. But those days just went away. People got older and we couldn't get the young guys to come in and join the clubs and stuff. It's hard still today. Hard to get young people to join clubs and join the community. But that's what life is. Right now, I've been retired for about 12, 15 years, but I've been working every day. I still work in the shop, still sell tires and a little mechanic work. A lot of fun. It's hard my wife keeps asking me when I'm going to retire. Some of the things we've done in Farmersville back in the day, we used to have, when we had the Lions Club, we'd have a carnival here, which had the Farmersville Fire Department put on carnivals. And we'd have a little carnival and stuff like that. So one year they didn't have anybody to set up on the bench and get the baseball through at them to drop them into the water tank. So I volunteered. And it was fun, a lot of fun. I was out there 2 or 3 hours. And the second year, it was so cold, I about froze. They put me in that water, man. I'd keep telling guys, I'll give them $1 if the ball hit the thing to knock me into the pool. We had a lot of time. It raised a lot of money for the fire department. And back in the old days, before that, back in the 60s, we had a memorial building, which is now Front Street, to where I don't know what that's called in there, where they have
something in herbs.
The herbs and spices store, I guess it is. That building was donated by the Marshall Farms and Dairies back in the 50s. We had that there, and then the fire department was across the street. But we had some good. We always had breakfast there with the Farmers Club on July the 4th. And then we had our parade, and then we had a big breakfast there in the morning. That way, that lasted for years until they finally just closed up. When the Lions went out, actually, it kind of dispersed. We had a lot of things like that. A lot of fun. Yes, there's only 2 of us left. A lady named Audrey McCoy, myself, are still charter members of the Farmersville Kiwanis Club, which we started in 1989. There was 25 people joined. We had a good club, and it went on. And we made a lot of money for the community, a lot of money for the schools, for donations and stuff. And stuff we still do with that. We still do a lot of things with the Kiwanis, and we have our food giveaway in Christmas time. And we put on the parade, which the parade is now, and it's 669.
Yeah.
Okay. See how old I'm getting? Anyway, we had a lot of that stuff, and then we had a lot of things going to school back in school times when I was just a kid, graduated from grade school in Lynn Cove. A friend of mine had lived up there, part of the Phillips family in town, just old families of 4 or 5 different families back in those days. And they moved back into Farmersville here behind the old theater. Theater where the Circle K is now, or where the
Macro Mart?
Macro, yeah. No, now it's called the Jackpot again.
Oh, it's a Jackpot. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right there.
On Farmersville Boulevard and Pasay Road, right there in that vacant lot, there was a theater there. And it lasted 1 year and burnt down, and they never replaced it. I really don't know the day it was built because I wasn't here. I wasn't here then. I was living in Richmond at the time. We had a lot of fun playing on that old school. There was a couple of walls still standing, so we could see who could climb to the top of it.
You're not recommending that to young people.
Was there an old drive-in right here too? Out there by the freeway?
Oh, on 156.
Yeah.
The Scoria Drive-In?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, that was a great place to
Can
go.
you talk about that? I don't think I
Friday and Saturday nights Friday night was dollar night. It's a big thing in the county. We had two here. We had one here and one on Mooney Boulevard, out on Mooney's Grove. But anyway, Sequoia Theater Drive-In would open up at dark and dollar a carload. I mean, all the people you could get in a car, it's dollar. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad, my mom would load up us and some of the neighbors' kids, and we'd drive over here, and there'd be 7 or 8, 10 kids loaded in an old car, and you'll pay $1 to get in. But that was a big thing. Friday night was a big thing for dollar night. And Saturday night they had the cartoons, the news, the feature film, and always a horror movie. We always had two movies, and that was the great thing. We'd come out here and go out there. And then those days, that night you had to pay 25 cents a person. I didn't have a car, but I rode a few times in the trunk. And when I got up, I had a 51 Mercury in 1957, 56. And one Saturday night, we got 11 kids in that 51 Mercury. We had them piled everywhere. We'd been to a basketball game in Exeter, and we all piled up in there after the game, which was over about 8:39, and went to the theater. One thing about Farmersville in those days, as long as I've grown up here, there was never any criminals in Farmersville. Everybody knew each other, and everybody watched out for each other, 1,500, 2,000 people. And the only thing we might have is a mom would give you a bad spanking for doing something wrong. If the police brought you home, you got 2 whippings. And that was legal back in those days to get a whipping. But it was really the days to be the name that we had back in those days. Those days, Farmersville was a bad city to come to, and it was clean up until the mid '60s, early '70s. You come to town and you come to Farmersville to the Frontier Club or somewhere like that. If you're from out of town, you come in looking for trouble. Back in those days, in the '60s, '50s and '60s, it was called Dingler's Diner. It's now where Boss Hogs is, and the man that built that was John Dingler and his father. They built that, which Dingler, they still have a few things. One thing still left of the city of Farmersville. Dingler's Apartments. They was one that built those apartments. And they built quite a few buildings in Farmersville. But they built Dingler's Diner, and it had a breakfast. But the main thing was at dinner they had like a buffet. And they had went dinners at night, and then that just kind of went away, and it turned into a breakfast and a dinner. They'd open up at 5 in the morning, serve till 1, breakfast and lunch, and then they'd go back and open up at 5:30 or 6 and serve dinner till about 8. And it's still, Boss Hogs is now. It's just, but where the station is on the the four-way stop here, on the northeast side, where the service station is there now, there was Don and forgot his father. They had a service station here, old service station. Family been there for probably 60 years before they sold out. But beside that, just north of that, the building there now, it was a restaurant there, and it's also the Orange Belt bus stop. Does anybody know what the Orange Belt is?
Oh, yeah.
Orange Belt buses. They come through. They run through the whole valley here, but that was their stop right there. It was at that. They had a restaurant there along with a bus stop. Good food. There was a boxing ring, 2 different places. I can remember one of them down on Ash Street and Farmersville Boulevard, where be south of where the car wash is now. Still a vacant lot there, and the little walk up out front was called the Frosty stand. And that was a hangout for all the kids. You know, how everybody hung out there, and you'd line up like the old days you see in the movies with all your cars and your shirt sleeves rolled up and your hats tipped back. But that was days for all the young people hung out there. And in that vacant lot, they would have Saturday nights, they would have a boxing. I only seen two before I went into service in the late 50s, I'm sorry. And before that, I don't know how much was before that. But only seen two of them, but it was fun, outside boxing.
Santos, huh?
That was Santana's. Santana was first they started out where the old Frosty stand used to be. They moved in there. Then they went down to Front Street, had Santana's Mexican food. People would drive, I don't know how far, I know they come from Porterville, Tulare, Pixley, people that I've met that I know there, all over the country to come to that Mexican restaurant. They had the best food that was ever served there. And I became good friends with the family and done a lot of work on their cars and stuff, become real good friends with the owners and stuff. But that was the best food.
What was the guy's name?
Well, the latest snowstorm was what, in 90,
Oh, yeah.
Like 90, yeah.
97?
Sounds about right.
97 or 88? And we had what? It stayed on the ground for 2 days, overnight.
Yeah.
But before that, we had a storm back in the 50s. But I don't remember how long it stayed on the ground. But there was snow everywhere. The whole valley was covered at that time. I don't remember exactly what year. But the flood of 55, I remember.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I still lived at Lynn Cove. And we went, after the rain and after the flood, my dad and I went up Dry Creek going from 198 to the Iron Bridge and went up North Fork. And we drove up North Fork probably 4 or 5 miles, and there's a canyon there that it's a real narrow bridge for Dry Creek coming down. And the water was about 80 foot wide. Now this is a little creek. It was 80 foot wide, and that narrow canyon backed up was over 30 foot deep. So we had a lot, and then from there it came into Farmersville, and they worked for 3 days here, I think, keeping the water from. It came in, but we didn't. They kept the 3 ditches cleaned out pretty good, but it was bad stuff.
That was before the Terminus Dam.
Living at Lynn Cove, our house was the only house that got flooded. Yes, everybody else was on high ground, and the house that we lived in was some low land there, where close to the old swamp used to be in Lynn Cove, and we was in the low part of that. And we got about 4 inches in the whole front yard. Didn't get in the house, but about 4 inches in the whole yard and our pasture in the back. And our cows was walking around in the forest, which we was kids. We thought it was fun. We didn't know how dangerous it was, but everybody waded to our yard out there and played in the pasture. Well, I see a big future for Farmersville. I hope I'm here for the next 50 years to watch it grow. But at my age, I'm 85 years old, and I've been around here since 1948, 8 years old, so I've been around a long time. Done a lot of things in Farmersville. We had a lot of fun, a lot of clubs, and a lot of things in Farmersville that I'd like to see redone again. But more than likely, what I'd like to see in Farmersville is the young people in the whole country to start getting themselves involved in clubs and things in their communities, other than marching up and down the streets, complaining or griping about something. And nowadays, this is a bad time, and it comes to every city. We had the one here back in 91, right here at the Four Corners, when they blocked all the streets off. And I had a nephew I was raising, and he was playing football. He was going to Exeter. We had no high school in Farmersville, going to football in Exeter. And we stopped at the corner here, and Gary Meek, the chief, and 3 or 4 policemen asked where I was going. And I told them, well, I was going to Strathmore to watch my nephew play football. And they said, yeah, we know. We need somebody to go over there and tell them that the people that live in and around Farmersville, to not come into town until the streets are opened up again. And that was, I think, 91 or 92. That was really a bad, sad time for Farmersville. It was okay if it opened up, no problem. It came out all right. But the thing was, going over and they announced on the football loudspeakers at the game on the announcing and told everybody what to do. And that scared a lot of people because there was a lot of people there on the streets. Haven't seen it since, but that was scary times for people. People didn't know, we never had anything like that. And I'm hoping again it doesn't happen. But nowadays we're more integrated with the people and the friends now. Back in the 50s and 40s and 50s and 60s, even the kids that were friends in school grew up together up to probably 5th or 6th grade before they really realized there was two different colors of people. And basically what we had was the Mexican people and the Arkies and the Okies. That was the country. Ladies lived on one side of town. Okies and Arkies lived on the other side of town. The only time we met and worked and got along great is when we went to the fields to work. Because we worked right along beside everybody. You pick cotton, you cut oranges, you pick grapes, peaches, plums, worked right beside those Mexican people just like they worked beside us. And had a lot of fun. End up lifelong friends through working in the fields. And still have them today. I still have some of my best friends are Mexican people today. And my best workers have ever been a couple of guys that went to school right here, worked for me for years. And just great people.
Any other advice to young folks in their lives,
Well, there's only one way to get involved. And that's first, start in church. Start in church, listen to what your pastor has to say, and listen to what God has to say. And everybody will work together, and your clubs and everything will work out so much better. We have some good clubs in Farmersville. We have some good churches in Farmersville. We got the KO Club, we got the Kiwanis Club. There's a couple other things going on in Farmersville, but we need the young people to start out young. Like when I went to clubs when we did back when I was young, like in 1st and 2nd grade, we had CE, which is Christian Endeavor. We have after school, a bus would drive up in front of the school, and the kids would go out and have a little Sunday school class on a Wednesday afternoon. But that's going away, and that's what we need right now. We need God back in the cities, back in the communities, and the young people start looking to see what He has to do for them. It's been 1948. I gave my life to the Lord. And I drifted from Him for 15 years before He got a hold of me and told me what I need to do. And that's when I started coming to joining everything I could. I belonged to everything at one time. Farmersville Sportsman, which I mentioned, all the clubs and stuff, and anything in Farmersville that I could do that I thought I was bettering it, I worked for. I've been doing that since about 77. And I've never stopped. Anything in Farmersville I could do that I thought I was bettering the city of Farmersville and making young people. And being on the school board was the closest thing you can get to it with the kids. And as long as they're working in the community, and right now, it's so needed right now. The United States are getting so far out, we're getting so far away from God that it's getting to be a terrible thing.